Hi, I'm Stephen James, author of Discover Torch Enameling, and I'm Stephen James with a cold, actually. You can hear it. Today, I'm going to show you a project that didn't make it into the book. It's called Enameled Braille Pendants. There's a few letters from the Braille alphabet in front of you right now, as well as a very painted hand. I was painting earlier today. When I'm sick, it's hard for me to kind of sit down and relax, so I like to get crafty, and I'm going to get crafty with you today. I'm going to show you how to make these enameled Braille pendants. They cost about a penny each, and you'll figure out why they're so affordable in just a little bit. So sit back and enjoy watching how to make enameled Braille pendants. To get started, you're actually going to be working with a copper penny, and pennies that are minted before 1982 are perfect sources for copper. As you can see, I've used my helicopter punch, and you embed it in here, and then you start to slowly turn it down, and it produces these little nibs that come out of it. You can see all the holes that I made in one penny. You can probably get about 20 of the little nibs out of a single penny. If you've taken my basic torch enameling class, you know that I like to use these little nibs, and I like to embed them into the enamel. And one of the things that you need to remember when you're making Braille pendants is using these just as is. They're very rough, and so I don't think they're very comfortable to touch. And so you're going to need to ball each one of these little pieces into a copper ball, which is very easy, and I'm going to show you how to do that next. So we're getting ready to turn the copper nibs into tiny copper balls. So I use a soldering brick for that, and you can see I've already created a few over here. And I'm also going to use one of my stainless steel trivets as a brace to keep the balls from rolling around, or rather rolling off of the soldering brick. And I'm working on a cookie sheet. I got it for $1 at the dollar store. So this is the first firing that you'll do. You'll create the tiny copper balls, which you can see an example of again right here. I've really started encouraging a lot of my students to move to a larger torch. You can see this canister is quite large. It's a MAP Pro. It's a premium torch fuel, and it actually, I love it because as you can see, it says faster heat transfer than propane, and it's totally true. And it's also faster heat transfer than butane. The torch head, as you can see, looks like so. It actually is something you can remove from the gas canister. So these are pretty easy to transport. I've taken them on planes a number of times. Of course, I'm always removing the gas canister before I do that. Here's the on-off switch, and I'm going to get ready to fire our tiny ball in just a little bit. It is a little bit louder and ultimately more powerful than your regular butane torch. So I'm going to turn it on. I'm probably going to stop talking because it's a little bit easier for you just to see the action. You noticed in the last shot how hot the copper got. So it totally went from the nib shape to a ball of copper, which we're going to use to create our Braille alphabet. We want these to cool before we place them in a small bath of penny bright and water. If you've been in my classes before, you know that I love these. They're actually contact lens cases, and I use them for a variety of things. They hold clear fire. I use them for enameling paint containers, and today I'm going to use it for a tiny penny bright bath. I've placed just a tiny amount of penny bright and a little bit of water. enough to actually bring it to the top of the contact lens case. And I'm now going to put my little nibs inside here and let them soak for a little while to remove all of the fire scale that happens to be on the outside of my little copper balls. And while these are soaking, I'd love for you to take a quick peek at some commercials that I've made. Hey, welcome back. So you can see I'm kind of rubbing my finger over the balls to help facilitate the removal of the fire scale. Sometimes I'll just let them sit in there for about 5 minutes and the penny bright will do most of the work. But if you rub your finger around your ball collection, it should help remove the fire scale. So I'm going to let this soak in here, and I'm going to counter enamel the back of my copper. So I have some penny bright and an old toothbrush, and I'm getting ready to clean my penny before I counter enamel. You'll always use penny bright to remove oils and grime and dirt from your copper, and you'll also use it after the first counter enameling fire to remove the fire scale on the front side of the piece. So I'm going to prep this piece and get a counter enamel on it. After you're done cleaning the penny with penny bright, you're going to want to dry it off and prepare a counter enamel. So you're going to add the counter enamel to the backside. The backside is the area that you cleaned first. And I kept my hole at 12 o'clock because if you lose it like I just did, it's helpful to know that it's at 12 o'clock. There we go. And then you can transfer it to the trivet. I'm going to set it back down over here. I've mucked it up a little bit. I'm going to lightly tap, but it'll all settle out once we fire. Once the project's cool enough to touch with a pair of bent nose pliers, after about a minute, you can actually remove it from the kiln brick, and you can transfer it to another kiln brick, where you can actually put it into a pot of warm vermiculite. Allow it to cool. We're going to remove the fire scale from the back side of the piece, and then be ready to add the front color. Here you can see I've added sapphire enamel to the front side of my penny. I think this color works really well with the exposed copper balls that will help form our Braille letter. And you'll sift the enamel onto the front of the penny in the exact same way that you sifted the counter enamel. Our next step is to actually embed the copper balls into the enamel, and then we will fire these into place. Now you can see they're in a little bit of water right now. They actually need to be thoroughly dried before you place them into the enamel. And one more tip, I usually make more than I need so I can get the most perfect balls to help form the Braille letters. As you can see, I'm starting to drop the copper balls into place, and Braille actually follows a formation using 6 different points and a combination of those points. So I use the hole at the top of the pendant as a reference point for where I will drop the copper balls. I'm making a letter S, so 1, 2, 3, and I'll be dropping them into place and then lightly tapping them. So here you can see the copper balls actually oxidized while they were being fired. I'm going to pop this penny into a penny bright bath, and that should help remove the fire scale from each of the little bumps in the letter. I've covered the penny with some penny bright. I'm going to let it sit here for a few minutes and then use the toothbrush and lightly brush away the oxidation under running water. Here is my finished project. You can see the balls are actually encased into the enamel, and they feel pretty good to touch. I've also taken a Sharpie marker around the perimeter of the penny as opposed to using a more traditional oxidizer. Now, as I said earlier, this project did not make it into the book, but it is full of 25 great projects, so I encourage you to order it on Amazon.com today. Thank you.